It's, I don't
Present.
see her. I don't see Miss.
Present.
You're good, Mrs. Pitts.
Okay, thank you. Good evening and welcome to another at-home school board meeting of the Winslow Township Board of Education. This is our regular meeting. Today is Wednesday, May 13th, 2020. Public notice of this meeting was given to all board members and associates, and a notice dated January 3rd, 2020. It was advertised in the Courier Post, posted in all schools, the administration office, the municipal building, the library, the Bud Dubel Center, Edgewood Acres, Elmtown, and the Winslow Township Post Office. And this is our mission statement. The mission of the Winslow Township District, a large, diverse, and growing community, is to educate all students to become independent, lifelong learners, critical thinkers, and caring and confident members of our community. The district, in partnership with the community and in a climate of cooperation and mutual respect, will provide an academic environment which values excellence and diversity, encourages students to strive for personal excellence, and assist them in acquiring the knowledge, skills, and attitudes necessary to contribute positively to a rapidly changing world. Roll call, please.
Mr. Blake,
Present.
Ms. Dredden,
Here.
Ms. Martin,
Present.
Ms. McClendon,
Present.
Ms. Mitchell,
Present.
Mr. Shaw, Mr. Shaw,
Present.
Ms. Peterson, and Ms. Pitts.
Present.
Quorum.
Thank you. Can we now join together and recite the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
Allegiance
to the flag
to the flag.
of the United States
States
of America and to the republic
Republic.
for which it
For which it
stands,
stands.
one nation,
Nation.
Under God.
Under God.
indivisible,
Indivisible.
with liberty
Justice for all.
and justice for all.
And justice for all.
Thank you. Ms. Mitchell, will you now read out 2019-2020 district goals?
Yes, Madam President. 2019-2020 district goals. Number 1, student achievement. Continue implementation of the academic plan to address A, articulation at all grade levels throughout the district. B, focus on classroom instruction at all grade levels. C, increase student proficiency rates throughout the district. D, evaluation and updating all district programs. E, accountability of all district staff. Number 2, continue to foster a positive school environment that is conducive to teaching and learning. A, focus on building relationships among the staff that will result in increased learning and more effective instruction. B, promote creative instruction, training, and retraining. C, emphasis on collaboration with all district stakeholders. D, promote cultural competency throughout the district. 1, teacher to student relationships. 2, student to student relationships. Number 3, market our strengths and achievements to all stakeholders to increase capacity for greater parent, caregiver, community support. A, continue with our public relations marketing plan. B, continue to work with the various advisory committees in the district. C, examine communication methods utilized by the district.
Thank you, Ms. Mitchell. Moving now, board members, to awards and presentations. Dr. Poteet, would there be any this evening?
No, Madam President, there are no presentations this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Poteet. Correspondence, Ms. Boyle?
We have none this evening, Madam President.
Thank you, Ms. Boyle. We're at the minutes, and before I ask for a motion on the minutes, I would ask that you look at page 2 in the minutes. On the bottom of the page, it says Miss Gianna Shaheda. Ms. Ball, that name is Deanna. Deanna. Okay,
Hold on one second, Ms. Pitts.
yes, it's Deanna, Deanna, the first name.
Thank you, Madam President. We'll make that correction.
Thank you. At this point, I'm asking for a motion to approve our minutes from our regular meeting that was held April 29th, 2020, with the correction of the first name of Ms. Shaheda, open session. Is there a motion?
Motion Blake.
Second, Rita Martin.
Moved by Mr. Blake, second by Ms. Martin. Would there be further questions or comments? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Ms. Dredden,
Yes.
Ms. Martin,
Yes.
Ms. McClendon,
Yes.
Ms. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Shaw,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson, and Ms. Pitts.
Yes.
Motion has carried.
Thank you. Moving now, board members, to our committee reports. Would there be any committee chair that would have a report at this time?
Madam President, just an announcement.
Yes, Ms. Peterson.
The Education Committee will be meeting this coming Monday at 3 p.m. via conference call, and that's Monday, May 18th.
Thank you, Ms. Peterson. Any further comments from our committee chairs? Thank you. Moving now to our public comments. The Winslow Township Board of Education highly values the input of citizens in making important decisions that affect the children of our community. We also believe in the rights of citizens to observe our board meetings, to ensure that all citizens have the opportunity to attend school board meetings and offer comment, and to ensure that the board can conduct the important business of the district. We ask that speakers follow these guidelines when making public comments. The board president or board secretary will recognize those individuals in the audience who wish to make comment. Please respect these following procedures. Number one, all members of the public attending school board meetings must treat each other and the board with respect. Number two, please state your full name and address. Number three, please limit your comments to 4 minutes. Number four, please submit your questions to the Board of Education with your name, address, and telephone number where you can be contacted. Your questions will be answered within a reasonable amount of time. And number five, all individuals offering citizen comment are not permitted to make personal attacks on any district employee, board member, other testifier, or member of the public. At this time, I'm asking for a motion to approve opening our meeting to public comment.
Motion Blake.
Second, Martin.
Moved by Mr. Blake, seconded by Ms. Martin. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank
Aye.
you.
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Boyle?
Okay. Good evening. Welcome to the public comment section of the board meeting. Could you please state your name and address, please?
Sure. Maria Clark and 413 Inskip Road, Hamilton, New Jersey.
All right, Ms. Clark, would you like to make your comment?
Yes. Good evening, Dr. Poteet, administration, and school board members. Before I begin, I just want to say thank you to the board members that responded to the email that I sent a few days ago. My name is Mrs. Maria Clark, and I have been teaching lower elementary school children for the past 19 years at Winslow Township School Number 1. I have put my heart and soul into this building where I developed strong relationships with parents, students, and colleagues. I have had many accomplishments, such as creating the Camp Out Reading event, our first annual snowball dance, and I was awarded the 2013-14 Teacher of the Year. I have also achieved outstanding observations under 4 principles, demonstrating I am well qualified to teach lower elementary school children. Moving me to the upper elementary school number 6 to teach 5th grade is not best for students of Winslow Township. All of my training, workshops, expertise, and research has been to prepare lower elementary school children for success. I have no training or experience in upper elementary. Therefore, this involuntary transfer will not be beneficial to the students. I can only conclude that this involuntary transfer is not based on lack of performance. I hope you take all of this in consideration before you make the decision to transfer me to School 6, where I am not able to use my 19 years of experience and training. And I also would just like to add, I don't really understand, maybe you can help me, why I am being moved to 5th grade after 19 years working with kindergarten and 1st grade students.
Mrs. Pitts, this is Mr. Long. May I give an admonition to the board?
Yes.
Given the fact that this is a personnel issue, it would be inappropriate. This is a matter between the administration, Dr. Poteet and Dr. Carcamo, Mr. Davis, and not for the board to comment upon. It would be inappropriate for them to do so in a public forum. And there's a method by which, if anyone has questions about their transfer or any type of personnel matter, there's a process to follow within the administrative arm of the governance of the school. And it certainly would not be appropriate for any board members to comment with regard to Ms. Clark's concerns that she expressed this evening, despite how we may feel personally. It's something that has to be dealt with by the administration and not by the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Long. Mr. Long, would I be able to just ask a general question about teachers' certifications?
Certainly.
Dr. Carcamo? Is Dr. Carcamo there?
She's muted at the moment. I'm sure
Oh,
she's working her way. She's
I'm
good.
here.
Dr. Carcamo?
Yes, ma'am.
Just a general question about teachers' certifications. When a teacher is certified, are they certified for just a specific grade level, or are they certified for a spectrum of grade levels?
The spectrum of grade level.
Okay, all right.
Yes, I can answer that. I am certified K to 6.
Ms. Pitts, may I finish? So if
Dr. Carcamo.
it is for spectrum of grades, and only if there was only a preschool certification, then that teacher would only be allowed to do pre-K and kindergarten. But if it is a K6 or K8, it means that that teacher can teach from kindergarten up to 8th grade.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Dr. Carcamo.
You're welcome.
Ms. Boyle, would there be any other participant comment?
Ms. Clark?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to ask that we move on to the next public comment, person making a
Okay.
public comment.
Okay, I just figured since the personnel issue had to do with me and I was okay with, speaking in public, that it would be fine. So am I able to call back during executive session, or can you call me so I can kind of get an answer to this question?
So we're not, ma'am, we're not having an executive session this evening. Dr. Potteet, chain of command, would you mind responding to that particular issue?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
we can, Doc.
Yes, I'll just make a general response, and that is, the placement of all teachers in the school district is at the discretion of the superintendent. And having discussions with my personnel as well as building principal, assistant superintendent, I've decided to place people where they are needed and in the best interest of the students as well as the school district. So it's the superintendent's decision. I ultimately made that decision. And at this point, teachers don't necessarily have the right to tell you where they want to go. The only guarantee they have at this point, if they are tenured and they have done a satisfactory job, is that the school district can appoint them to a position each year, but they are not guaranteed, nor do they have input as to where that job will be. So my decision with all the teachers in the district is to place them where there's a need and in the best interest of the children as well as each of the schools. And that's pretty much generally how it's done.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Potteet. And thank you, Ms. Scott. So, Ms. Boyle, would there be any other individuals who have signed up to speak?
Yes, Madam President, I'm waiting for the next call to come through.
Okay.
Seems like we're having a slight delay. Good afternoon. Welcome to the public comment section of the Winslow Township Board of Education meeting. If you could please state your name and address, and then you can make
Sure.
your public comment.
Sure. My name is Lisa Schrader. My address is at 117 Baker Avenue in Atco.
Ms. Schrader, go ahead and make your comment.
Okay. I kind of typed it out because this is the first time that I'm actually addressing the board. So I just wanted to, let that be known. Good evening, Dr. Potteet, Madam President, and board members. I would like to introduce myself. My name is Lisa Schrader, and I reside at 117 Baker Avenue in Atco. My husband and I have resided in Winslow Township for 10 years and have 2 children who are district students. We both volunteer with the Winslow Eagles Youth Association's football and Winslow Township Little League programs. I am also a member of the 2019-2020 Winslow Township Preschool Parent Teacher Advisory Committee. I have physically attended board meetings in the past and have also attended the recent live stream meetings. At the conclusion of this pandemic, and we've returned to a new normal, I'm asking the board to consider the live stream of board meetings as well as the opportunity for the call-in portion for public comments to continue indefinitely. This option would allow equality for all township residents to participate and voice any concerns they may have. In regards to the remote learning topic, at the last board meeting, it was perceived that there was some type of disconnect with what information Drs. Potteet and Carcamo were stating and what the callers were looking clarification on. For example, in my son's class, his teacher utilized Zoom for 6 weeks until the no Zoom directive was announced. For 6 weeks, he was able to participate and do socialization meetings with any classmates that chose to participate, as well as with his teacher. They were held daily and were short in nature. No curriculum instruction was given during these meetings. To hear the interactions with each other as well as with their teacher was a pleasure to experience. One student showed drawings that he had been making, which none of his classmates nor his teacher had known they had any interest in, nor had they ever seen before. There were some Fridays that were designated as Fun Fridays, and scavenger hunts, home editions, were held. There were days that you could tell the children were having off days and repeatedly would ask, when are we going back to school? Other days, they were bouncing off the walls with energy and excitement as if they were in the classroom again. My husband and I have always felt as though School One is a close-knit family. Teachers and staff have always been amazing to work with and have always felt very comfortable with their Winslow education, despite the occasional negative outside opinions or noise, as I would like to refer it to. At back-to-school night, parent-student accountability was discussed, and during the preschool parent-teacher advisory committee meetings I've attended, social-emotional learning was always the topic that was discussed. Since the no Zoom directive went into effect and the notification from the governor last week addressing students would not be returning back to school this year, I have noticed a difference in my oldest son's demeanor. He looks forward to those remote meetings with his classmates. He looks forward to going to school. He looks forward to the schedule and the structure that school brought him. He's very active in sports and has had his flag football and baseball seasons on hold as well. His world has been flipped upside down. No sports, now no school or interaction with his classmates or teachers. The rug has been ripped from under him. There are a few students that his teacher has not heard from since remote learning began. Where is the parent accountability? Where is the equality for the remaining students that she has not heard from for those students who chose to participate in these meetings? To me, these meetings were their social emotional learning for the day. These are traumatic times for all, I understand, but taking away these meetings now from these children is just not acceptable. Currently, all instructional material has been uploaded to the school website, and the option to pick up paper packets at school exists. Will these options continue? What options are available to families who do not have need of technology or for parents who are not able to physically attend the pickup time? Would the district
Now, excuse me, Ms. Schrader. Ms. Schrader, this is Cheryl Pitts. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Ms. Schrader, as I indicated, we do allow 4 minutes, and you are at your 4-minute limit. Can you just wrap up this, or is there more that you would want to speak on?
I could probably give it down in 30 seconds, if you would allow me at least the next 30 seconds.
Okay, you have 30 seconds.
Okay, thank you. If requested, which Chromebooks will be loaned out to the lower elementary school students? I respectfully request that the board reconsider a position on how these platforms are utilized and all or none decision of April 29th and offer guidance on what steps the district has taken for future remote learning. Staff reassignment matter. When printing out a copy of this evening's agenda, I completely was shocked and devastated to see the name of one of our first grade teachers, Maria Clark, on the agenda as part of the 2020-2021 staff reassignments to a 5th grade position. Mrs. Clark has been a teacher at School 1 for 19 years. My son was fortunate enough to have Mrs. Clark for both kindergarten and 1st grade. She was very influential in his learning, remained available for all concerns. We have had assisted in both my son and I for his anxiety diagnosis. She was also supportive of him inside and outside the classroom as she was taking time out of her own personal schedule to attend football and baseball games. Mrs. Clark also supports a variety of SHA activities. If and when the students return in September, all of our teachers, Mrs. Clark deserves to greet those same smiling faces that she has had to abruptly part with in March in the same building. Such reassignment would be devastating to students, parents, staff, and school and HSA community. Mrs. Clark is a vital asset to our school. In closing, I would respectfully request that the board reconsider Dr. Poteet's recommendation of Mrs. Clark's reassignment to School 6. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ms. Schrader, with regards to your questions, the first one I believe you posed to the board with regards to continuing in this particular mode. Now, what I would say to you, Ms. Schrader, is this: at this point, no one knows exactly what the future holds, and at this point, I would not be able to say, nor do I think other board members would also be able to say whether or not we would be able to continue in this mode. So let's wait to see exactly what happens as we go forward. Now, your other questions can be answered by Dr. Poteet.
Mrs. Pitts, I'm not necessarily sure. There were so many questions. I'm not sure where to begin. However, I do know one of the things that was spoken about in reference to use of Zoom and not being able to use it. I think I spoke extensively on Zoom, but that does not.
Correct. It's the other platform. It was the other platforms that you suggested at the last meeting that were able, that the teachers were able the Google Sheets that they use. We're no longer allowed to use those because as Mr. Carcamo has advised, it's either an all or nothing approach. So my question to the board is, how is this, if we're talking about equality, how is
Okay, excuse me. Mrs. Pitts, I think the parent had their 4 minutes, and if you want me to respond, I would like to have that opportunity to respond. If those platforms are not available anymore, I am not aware of that. Again, I always direct these kinds of questions to the building principals because the building principals are directly responsible for making sure that those platforms are available to the teachers. And if Zoom is not available, then we go to whatever else is available, and there's more than one. But let's say, for example, Google Classroom. Now, Google Classroom, and I know Google Meets are available. Google Classroom is one of the more popular ones, and the teachers could very well use those two platforms. Now, I'm not sure what else to say other than the fact that Zoom is not available. I stated why it wasn't available, but since there are other platforms that are available to the teachers, then I will continue to encourage those teachers to use those platforms.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Poteet.
okay? Well, I'll have to follow up in another email then.
Thank you, Ms. Schrader.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Ms. Boyle?
Yes, Madam President, we do have another caller.
Okay,
I just have to wait for it to come in.
okay.
Good evening. Welcome to the public comment section of the Winslow Township Board of Education meeting. If you could please state your name and address.
Hi, yes, I'm Becky Nieves. I reside at 9 Elbow Lane in Sicklerville. I am the CAC chairperson, and I was just calling in to read our notes of our May 7th meeting.
Ms. Nieves?
Yes.
Nieves, in reading your notes, will it go beyond the 4-minute limit?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, can I continue?
Yes.
Okay, point number 1 that we discussed was discussion regarding virtual meeting for the lower elementary schools, suggestion of implementing a more comprehensive survey to see who needs access to internet service and what the school system can be doing to getting people online. Internet access is crucial even during normal times and can impede learning accessibility. Virtual meetings are crucial not only to socialization, but to actual instruction. It was noted that the lower elementary parents feel as though packet learning is more or less busy work. And to speak to Dr. Poteet's comments regarding teachers having access to other platforms, I can assure you that at my daughter's school, there is no access to any other platform. They are not utilizing any virtual learning at all. The teachers at my daughter's school have been advised that they cannot use any type of virtual meeting, FaceTime, or anything in regards to those things. Number 2, information was asked regarding CAC's previous recommendations for improving substitute teacher retention and adding aides to kindergarten classrooms. We were advised that the subcommittees of the BOE have not met to discuss these recommendations. Number 3, suggestions were made to update our district website to reflect the events that are now no longer happening due to the pandemic. Number 4, suggestion was made that the website be updated to include remote learning suggestion and guidance for parents. Number 5, it was noted that teacher communication varied across school and grade levels. Some parents are not receiving much follow-up and support in the upper levels. Number 6, it was agreed upon that the CAC would compose a survey to be distributed to parents in regards to what they needed to help support remote learning. Ms. Thomas of the CAC has composed such a survey, and it has been forwarded to Ms. Martin and Ms. Pitts, I believe. Number 7, suggestions were made for video messages from administration to be placed on the website or holding virtual town halls in support of parents in remote learning. Number 8, we talked about the need for plans for moving up ceremonies and graduation. We were assured that plans were in the works. Number 9, suggestion was made that more effort needs to be made to engage parents due to remote learning. Those parents who were not engaged during time when school was actually in session are going to be even less engaged now, further increasing the learning and partnership gap. And number 10, which is our final one, the suggestion that the BOE meetings continue to be offered virtually even when normalcy resumes. Virtual meetings have better attendance and provides better accessibility to the community. And lastly, the CAC just wanted to acknowledge that last week was Teacher Appreciation Week. And as a parent who is now remote teaching her kids, I can say that I appreciate our teachers now more than ever. So thank you, Winslow Township educators. And that was all that I had.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Nieves. Ms. Nieves, I would, that's a long list, and I don't know that we can answer or respond to your satisfaction with regards to all of the items on your list, but there are a few items on your list that I can respond to, and I'll start with the last one, which was number 10, with regards to requesting that we continue these meetings on a remote basis. And I believe, I'm not sure if you heard the caller prior to you, and my answer is that we will have to play this by ear to find out where we are with regards to our district, whether or not we will continue remote learning. And so therefore that will have a great impact on whether or not we will continue our board meetings with this mode. Now, with regards, Ms. Nieves?
Yes.
Okay. Now, with regards to the survey, you are correct. You did forward that to me, and I did forward that to all of the board members. And I also had a conversation with regards to Dr. Poteet. And in reading the survey, I thought that the questions were good questions, they were reasonable questions. But at this time, I would like to find out if any board members would have any comments with regards to the survey, the parent survey that is being recommended by the CAC. Board members? Mr. Shaw?
Ms. Pitts?
Yes.
This is Julie.
Okay, Ms. Peterson?
I thought they were well thought out. And I think that if given the survey in its current form, that it may yield a lot of useful information. So I thought highly of the survey.
I agree. Thank you, Ms. Peterson. Any other comments from board members?
Mrs. Pitts, the
Mr.
survey.
Mr. Shaw? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I would say this, board members, because again, this is a different kind of medium for us. When you respond, I think it's important for those who are listening that you say who you are.
Yes, ma'am. Mrs.
Okay.
Pitts, this is Mr. Shaw.
Okay, Mr. Shaw?
To follow on Ms. Peterson, the survey is something that should get out because it's going to give us information that we will need to get information to help with the CAC and get them and get us ourselves the information to help people.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Any other comments, board members?
Mrs. Pitts?
Dr. Poteet.
As you stated, I did have an opportunity to review the survey, and I would like to just try to address some of the questions because a lot of the questions and information that is asked, you know, the school district does have the information. Parents may not be aware of it, but on the other hand, it's not necessarily information that we would just readily make available. For example, And please receive my responses in the vein in which it's given, because I would like to have clarification on some of them, but also share from a perspective of what I already have in place. For example, do you have reliable internet service by phone, laptop, etc.? We have that information available. The building principals had to do their own surveys within their buildings so that they would know how many children would need internet, how many would need laptops, etc. Plus, this was the survey required of us by the state of New Jersey Department of Education. So that information is already available. We know how many students do not have internet access. For example, school number 4 has a little over 500 students. 50%, maybe 250 of those youngsters do not have internet access. And that's because we've already have that information readily available because it was required of us. Number 2, do you need assistance navigating Genesis, Parent Portal, or Google Classroom? Now, for example, we've provided numerous times information about Genesis and Parent Portal because members of the board, you know, those are not new platforms for us. That has been in place for years. And we provide that information year after year after year. And even this year, we've extended that information. Now, again, Google Classroom, again, that is something that our teachers use, as I stated earlier. Whether or not they I don't know, but that's something we already have in place. Do you feel that you have adequate time to help your child with assignments? Well, as a school district, I'm saying if a parent doesn't have adequate time, I'm not sure what the school district can do about that. That's up to each individual and what time they have based on their personal responsibilities. But whether or not they have, just say, for example, a parent says, I don't have enough time to work with my child. What is the school district? What can we do about that? That's just a point. Is your child struggling with completing assignments? Then my response would be, just like all the other parents who've reached out to us, have you called anyone? Meaning, have you reached out to the building principal? Have you reached out to the teacher? And these things come to mind because when I read that, I'm thinking, well, if you're having any problems, have you reached out to anyone to, you know, get the assistance that you may need? Are you able to communicate with your child's teacher by phone, text, email? Now, at this point, all the teachers have email accounts. You may not be able to reach them by phone because that would be their personal phones, and we don't require teachers to give out their personal phones, but they do. But if a teacher decides to do so, then fine. But there is access, and the question would be, if you have not reached out, why? And if you have and have not gotten a response, then again, go to the building principal. If not, Dr. Carcamo or myself. Do you feel supported by your child's teachers? Now, if a teacher doesn't, if a parent doesn't feel, again, who have you called to get any assistance with that? Because again, it's all about our building principal. Do you need an interpreter? Well, that would be a question. I don't know if anyone needs an interpreter because as we communicate, even in a regular classroom, if a teacher, or excuse me, if a parent needed an interpreter, we provide that in the classroom or in the school itself. We have Spanish-speaking staff. We have Spanish-speaking support staff, ELL teachers, of course, depending on the level. We have Spanish teachers. So, you know, those services are available. Does your children need a tutor or a mentor? That may be the case, but the question would be, even if someone said, I need a mentor, what is the school district to do about that? Provide them with a mentor or provide them with a tutor? I mean, these are things we don't necessarily provide now, but if a teacher wants to tutor someone, then that's up to the individual teacher to make themselves available. Sometimes they do it for free, sometimes they do it at a cost. Do you need additional learning supports for your children? I'm not sure what that is, so I'm not sure what being asked at this point. Do you need outside resources to support your household? Again, I'm not sure what they're requesting for outside, because if you're not asking the district, then outside resources is something that the district doesn't necessarily have available, other than we can report to certain agencies, et cetera. But that would be my only questions when you ask for surveys and the clarification. And then who will be responsible for putting the survey together and getting it to the teachers? My first example would be for the 250 kids, for example, or families at school number 4, if they don't have internet access, how would you get the survey to those families? Will they be delivered? Is it paper? Are they going to be mailed? You know, those kinds of things. And if the CAC is going to do a survey, how are they going to conduct the survey? And those would just be some of my comments. One way or the other, Mrs. Pitts, you know, just reading them and just giving you my immediate responses based on what is written. And that's all I'm pretty much providing, is just my comments to the various questions that are listed here.
Thank you, Dr.
If I may?
Ms. Nieves?
Yes, the CAC's plan on implementing the survey and the purpose of getting it together so quickly was so that the board could look at it, approve it, and it could be distributed during the next packet pickup or drop off during the lower elementary. And as far as the lower elementary, specifically school 4 being surveyed, I know I, as a parent, was not surveyed at school 4. And if you asked my 4-year-old whether or not she had internet access, I don't know how she would have answered that question. But I just wanted something, and the CAC wanted something more formal to get an accurate gauge on who had internet access, and if there was anything that we as a district could do to put information out regarding free or reduced internet access or anything that could help facilitate remote learning.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Nieves. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Mrs. Fisk, I need to address that. Is Mrs. Nieves asking for this information for herself, or is she asking for the school? As I said earlier, I already have that information. So I'm not sure who is she asking it for. I have it, the district has it, my principals have it. Why does Mrs. Nieves need this? I mean, what is her purpose for having this information?
Ms. Nieves?
For me to have that information, this was for the district to have this information so that we could have this.
Already have it, Ms. Nieves. Thank you. We already have it in our possession as we speak.
Ms. Nieves?
Yes.
Ms. Nieves, with regards to your questions on the survey, did you say that you already had it formalized? You have it in a narrative form, or you have it in writing?
Yes, we have it in writing as Ms. Thomas wrote it and as we forwarded it to the Board of Education.
Okay, now what you forwarded to me were the questions. But what I'm asking now is about the format of a survey. Is that something that we need to take another step further, or these are just the questions?
Those are just the questions. The CAC's recommendation that it would be put out in a paper format, again, during a pickup and drop off for the lower elementaries, as that's the only access that parents have to their work. And
Okay.
for elementary and high school are still utilizing internet. Theirs can be put online or in Google Classroom form.
Okay, let's here's what I'm saying, Ms. Nieves. I'm going to ask Ms. Martin. Ms. Martin, are you there?
Here, I'm here.
Okay, Ms. Martin, I'm going to ask you, along with your CAC members, to perhaps as soon as possible, because certainly this is something that the board feels a survey would be beneficial. So, Ms. Martin, I'm going to ask you with the CAC members. I'm going to ask Ms. Mitchell. Are you there, Ms. Mitchell? Ms. Mitchell?
I'm here.
Okay. And I'm going to ask also Ms. Peterson. Ms. Peterson? Ms. Peterson, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, so I'm going, Ms. Martin, I'm going to ask you, along with the CAC members, with Ms. Mitchell, Ms. Peterson, and I'm going to ask Mr. Shaw. I'm going to ask that you come together and give the board a paper format as to exactly how, what kind of questions, because I do believe, but let me ask, Ms. Nieves, did Dr. Poteet, were several of your questions that would appear on the survey answered?
I'm just concerned, and the CAC was concerned that we know there's a large portion of parents out there that we've been contacted by who just feel like they have been left out, and the issues of the virtual learning. And we really just want to get a feel for the community just so we can fix what might not be going so well and improve on what we can be doing. Particularly if remote learning is something that may continue in September.
Okay, so this is what we're going to do. I've asked Ms. Martin in the CAC, and as you heard, I've created a small subcommittee for for you to come together and come up what you feel would be a paper survey so that the whole board could take a look at it together with Dr. Poteet for reconsideration to go forward. And also, Ms. Nieves, the recommendations that you sent, the board will also consider those recommendations. But as I said, and I'm hoping that you understand, number 10 of your recommendations has already been answered.
Yes, I understand. Thank you for considering our recommendations.
All right.
Madam President, this is Lavanya Mitchell. Can I ask Ms. Nieves a question?
Yes.
Ms. Nieves, this is Lavanya Mitchell. I heard you say that a large number of parents have contacted you about having concerns about feeling left out. Can you give me an idea of how many parents we're talking about?
I would say at a minimum 50.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Nieves. Ms. Boyle?
Yep.
Mhm.
Yes. Would there be another individual for public comment?
There might be one more, Ms. Pitts. We're going to check and see.
Okay.
Ms. Pitts, may I say something? This is Ms. McClendon.
Yes, Ms. McClendon.
Just in reference to Mrs. Nieves that was just speaking, she actually answered my question because I was wondering how did the CAC derive to those questions? And from what she just mentioned now, she had a lot of concerns or comments coming in from parents regarding around these questions that she has put on, that she sent us in email. So if the CAC is a liaison kind of between the community and the board, that means that there are some concerns or I guess around these questions that are being presented that, either need clarification or need answers to. So if parents are reaching out to the CAC or individual members, they're supposed to be our connection to the community. So I think that definitely the survey is a good thing. And it seems like Dr. Poteet has a lot of the answers already. So hopefully, once it's put together, a lot of those questions can be answered and pushed back out to the parents of Winslow Township, as soon as possible.
Thank you, Ms. McClendon. That's a good suggestion. And certainly once it's put together, of course, we would be able to put it on our website. So again, the small subcommittee will get together with Ms. Martin. Ms. Martin? Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And Ms. Martin, you will pull together a date and time for that's subcommittee of the board together with the CAC, and hopefully can come up with a paper narrative that we can pass through to the administration.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments, board members?
Madam President, there is one more speaker.
Thank you, Ms. Boyle.
Okay. Good evening. Welcome to the public comment section of the Winslow Township Board meeting. If you would please state your name and address and then proceed with your comment.
Thank you. This is Debbie Esposito from Stickerville, 19 Chapel Circle. I just wanted to kind of piggyback on what Ms. Nieves was saying. I applaud the school board for having an interest in gathering information. I'm really glad that the district has taken the opportunity and has already done some legwork in terms of assessing the needs of parents in the district. But I think the survey, and I haven't seen it, but I think surveys like this give you the opportunity to gather information on a larger scale on just from, not addressing individual concerns, but just gathering information relating to barriers to remote education. And as we move forward, I think somebody mentioned that there's a good possibility that we'll still be in this situation in September. And this is information that's going to be really valuable as we move forward. So I think that a survey like this is not for the purpose of addressing individual needs. I know Dr. Petit, made the point of if somebody has a question, they should answer, they should ask, and that's true. But I think we need to know how many people are having those issues. How many people are having problems with having enough time to work with their children. How many people are having problems with internet access? We need to know what are the big picture issues. And I think a survey like this would give us those answers. So I applaud the board for moving forward with it. And I hope that we'll be able to actually implement it and get the data that we need to improve services with regard to remote learning. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Esposito. Ms. Boyle?
Yes, Madam President. Anybody else?
No.
I believe that concludes those that have signed up, Madam President.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Boyle. Therefore, board members, moving on, I'm asking at this time for a motion to adjourn the public comment portion of our meeting. Is there a motion?
Motion Blake.
Second, Martin.
Moved by Mr. Blake, second by Ms. Martin. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Board members, moving on, I'm on page 3, the superintendent's report that begins and ends on page 3. At this time, I'm asking for a motion.
Motion Blake.
Second, Martin.
Moved by Mr. Blake, second by Ms. Martin. Would there be further comments or questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Ms. Dredden,
Yes.
Ms. Martin,
Yes.
Ms. McClendon,
Yes.
Ms. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Shaw,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson, and Ms. Pitt.
Yes,
Motion has carried.
thank you, Ms. Boyle. Board members, at this time, I'm asking for a motion to approve the business administrator board secretary's report that begins at the top of page 4 and continues through to the top of page 8. Is there a motion?
Motion Blake.
Second, Martin.
Moved by Mr. Blake, second by Ms. Martin. Further comments or questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Ms. Dredden,
Yes.
Ms. Martin,
Yes.
Ms. McClendon,
Yes.
Ms. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Shaw,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
and Ms. Pitts.
Yes,
Motion has carried.
thank you.
Ms. Pitts, Mr. Long requests to address you and the board, please.
Yes, Mr. Long.
On page 9, Mrs. Pitts,
Yes.
item 6, A and B.
Salary increments?
Yes. There would respectfully be a request based upon my conversations with Dr. Potita and Mr. Davis that those items be tabled and most likely be presented at the next meeting.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Thank you, Mr. Long. Board members, at this time, I'm asking for a motion to approve the superintendent recommendations under personnel with the fact that we're going to table number 6. Now, this report begins at the top of page 8 and moves through to the bottom of page 10. Is there a motion?
Motion Blake.
Second, Martin.
Moved by Mr. Blake, second by Ms. Martin. Would there be further questions or comments?
Yes. This is Miss Martin.
Yes, Ms. Martin.
Number 2. I see that we're approving the high school 6-period assignments. There's 5 of them that we're approving. I'm not sure why we're doing that when we're in remote learning.
Page 8, under personnel, Ms. Martin?
Yeah, on page 8, number 2.
Number 2?
Yeah, I just need a
Okay.
clarification.
Okay, Dr. Poteet or Dr. Parker?
Yes, Mrs. Martin,
Yes.
it replaces, it takes the place of us hiring an additional teacher. So those teachers already have a full load, and with the additional 6 period, they are teaching one additional class. Therefore, if not, we would have to hire an additional teacher. So rather than have a full-time teacher to teach those classes, we already have the personnel there. If they take on one additional class, then those students will still receive the services. It's not like the children still will not need services, even though we're still virtually. Those youngsters who've already filled out their schedules, we already know who they are. Those classes have been filled, and those services need to be addressed. So instead of hiring an additional teacher, we ask those individuals just to teach an additional class.
Okay, so they're just doing it from May 4th until June 30th? As it's stated?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you for the clarification.
Any further comments or questions? Thank you. So this report has already been moved in second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Ms. Dredden? Yes. Ms. Martin? Yes. Ms. McClendon?
Yes.
Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Ms. Pitts?
Yes.
Motion has carried.
Thank you. Board members, we are still on page 10. We're moving to our addendum, and we all did receive this earlier today.
Yes.
And I'm hoping that certainly we all had an opportunity to read through it. So at this time, I am asking for a motion to approve the Business Administrator Board Secretary's report as it appears on our addendum, beginning on top of page 1 and continuing through to the middle of page 3. Is there a motion?
Motion Blake.
Second, Martin?
Moved by Mr. Blake, second by Ms. Martin. Would there be further questions or comments? Hearing none,
Yes,
roll call.
Mr. Shaw.
Yes, Mr. Shaw.
I have a question about number 2 for the food service equipment bid.
Number 2.
Yes, ma'am.
14 food service equipment.
This is Mr. Long. I can address that, Mrs. Pitts.
Okay.
When that bid came in, we looked to see who the low bidder was, and that ended up being Chef's Depot. However, when we compared the technical specifications to the equipment that was bid, found several material deficiencies, and we drafted an opinion that was forwarded to the board dated May 11th, 2020, which determined that based upon those material deficiencies, the low dollar bidder was not the lowest responsible bidder, because we were, to give it in simply as I could state it, if we were out seeking apples, they were bidding oranges, and their equipment was deficient in a number of categories. Hence, that's why they were able to submit a lower bid. So based upon those material deficiencies, they were disqualified. which is set forth in our legal opinion. And actually, Johnson was the lowest responsible bidder who complied in all respects to the material conditions of the technical specifications.
Thank you, Mr. Long.
You're welcome.
No further clarification needed, Mr. Long, Mr. Shaw?
Chef's Depot.
Okay, thank you. So again, the addendum item has been moved in second. And if there are no further questions or comments, I'm going to ask for a roll call.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Ms. Dredden,
Yes.
Ms. Martin,
Yes.
Ms. McClendon,
Yes.
Ms. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Shaw,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
and Ms. Pitts.
Yes,
Motion has carried.
thank you. Members, returning to our regular agenda, I am at the Open Records Act. Ms. Boyle?
Yes, Madam President, from the period of April 30th through May 8th, we received and responded to one request by Ms. Tara McCauley. She was requesting salaries, wages of all school district staff, including administrators. That information was provided.
Thank you, Ms. Boyle. Board members, moving now, I am at the top of page 11. Would there be any old business that you would care to discuss at this time? Thank you. Hearing none. Board members, would there be any new business that you would care to discuss at this time? Board members, the only item with regards to new business that I would like to comment on has to do with the applications to fill our board vacancy. I do believe that the 3 applications, their letters and their resumes were forwarded to all board members. And I would just want to remind us, as was stated earlier, that we will be interviewing and appointing the person to that seat at our May 27th meeting. That particular meeting will begin at 6 p.m. Because we have 3 applicants, we will be interviewing them at 6 o'clock, 6:15, and 6:30, which will, after that, we will meet and discuss and determine who we will appoint. And that person will be sworn in and appointed that evening. Between now and May 27th, board members, if you have any specific questions that you would like to be asked of the board vacancy applicants, please forward them to me through our email. Any questions, board members? Thank you. Informational items. Dr. Poteet, will there be any informational items at this time?
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, there are a few information items this evening. First of all, I was contacted by the Camden County Board of Elections. You know, this year's primary election is July the 7th. They're requesting the use of School 4 as a voting site. My preliminary response to them is we've used that school in the past. And my question now would be for them to go through the use of facilities process. Now, I don't think we normally, but I would ask, I forward that to Mrs. Boyle this evening. I'm not sure whether or not we had them go through the use of facilities process in the past, but whatever we normally have done, we'll make it happen. And at this point, it's just a matter of the board, Madam President, saying yay or nay at this point for us to move forward.
Dr. Poteet, the request to use School 4, is this is not a new request, as you said, they've always used?
School 4 has always been a voting site in the district.
Right.
And usually we have an in-service day that day. The children are not there, but at this point, since it was moved to July 7th, school was already, it's the summertime, and at this point, it's just a matter of us making that facility available. My question at this point is, we can move forward with the approval as long as, you know, if we require that they fill out the use of facilities information or whatever we've required them to do in the past, we'll just continue to move forward.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Poteet.
Question.
Yes, Ms. McClendon?
Yes, it's Ms. McClendon. Dr. Poteet, with the pandemic going on right now, as far as them utilizing the school, are there any liabilities to the school? And whose job is to manage, the social distancing? And when it comes down to then sanitizing once that place has been used, whose responsibility is that?
Well, there are two answers to your question. One, the Board of Elections will be responsible for all the health requirements in terms of social distancing. That is not the responsibility of the district. However, after the building has been used, they usually use the cafeteria, you know, is a direct access. Once you go through the double doors, you go directly into the cafeteria. We normally would go in and sanitize the cafeteria ourselves, and that's, well, we use sanitizing now, but in the past we've always been responsible for cleaning up after they have used it. They'll take all their boating boots out, put back everything the way it was, but now for the sanitation purposes, it will be our responsibility to do so. It's one of those situations where we are providing the public service to the community.
Right. No, I understand. I was just wondering, with everything going on, liabilities with people coming in and out the doors. That was just the reason why I asked that question. But thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. McClendon. Board members, any other questions with regards to what Dr. Poteet has shared with us? Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson, will you frame a motion for the board?
Excuse me, Mrs. Pitts, I have a couple more information.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Poteet. Yes, go ahead.
I was waiting for questions, but if not, I'll go through these very quickly. But if there's any questions, please stop me. We normally do a Teacher of the Year in May. We are still going through the process. Teacher of the Years are identified at the building level websites, but we are going to use the district's website to identify the Teacher of the Year this year. So please be looking forward to that. Two important items, graduation, virtual graduation ceremony and 8th grade moving up ceremony. We are in constant communication with the building principals and the administrative teams at each of those sites. We are moving forward. That information will be made available to the parents of those young people. And what we are going to do, of course, we'll also make it public because it's going to be virtual. But I believe that we are taking the steps to make this as best we possibly can under the circumstances so that the young people can be proud of at least what we're trying to do to show them how much we care for them. So that is moving forward. One of the biggest concerns we have, and we are presently addressing that also, and that is textbook collection for the entire school district.
Yes.
As well as personal items that have been left in lockers. Of course, you know that last day I'd asked everyone for that last day that we did come to school, ask everyone to please take all your personal items home. And unfortunately they didn't. So there are personal items in some of the classrooms for the lower elementary, personal items in lockers for the older students. And we are working on that process. And of course, all of the health requirements have to be included. So we are working building by building. And when it is finalized, each building principal will be reaching out to their parents, letting them know when they can come to the building. We're going to spread it out as much as we can, alpha, time-wise, so that we can have as few as young people or parents, excuse me, to come in, pick up and turn in those materials. So that is something that's being planned right now, but I want you to know that is going to be a mammoth task, particularly high school, middle schools, because many of those young people can have up to 8 textbooks and some other additional materials, as well as those computers or Chromebooks that were distributed. That concludes my information items. Madam President, if there's any questions at this time, I'll be more than happy to address them.
Board members, any questions for Dr. Poteet? No questions? Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
are you prepared to frame a motion?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Do you want me to move a motion? Or
Yes.
move for approval of the Board of Elections to use School 4 on July 17th in accordance with the regulations as specified by COVID-19 safety and health requirements.
That's July 7th, Mrs. Peterson, just a point of correction, July 7th.
Did we correct that, Ms. Peterson?
Yes. You want me to do it again?
Yes,
I can do it.
please.
Move for approval of the Board of Elections to use School 4 on July 7th in accordance with the requirements for COVID-19 safety and health regulations.
Thank you, Ms. Peterson. I'm waiting for a second.
Second, Ms. Martin.
Thank you. It has been moved and second. Would there be further questions or comments? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Ms. Dredden,
Yes.
Ms. Martin,
Yes.
Ms. McClendon,
Yes.
Ms. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Shaw,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
and Ms. Pitts.
Yes,
The motion has carried.
thank you. Board members, that concludes our agenda for tonight. And I would like to thank everyone, including board members, administration, and members of the community for your patience with regards to this new and different way in which we have to communicate.
Mrs. Pitts, Mr. Long,
Yes, Mr. Long.
just want to indicate no executive session tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Long. That would be my next question. Therefore, with no executive session, at this time, I'm asking for a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Blake motion.
Martin, second.
Moved by Mr. Blake, second by Ms. Martin. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, board members. This meeting is adjourned.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
I ended the stream.